What is up, guys? Got an exciting video for you this week. I just got a special delivery from Three Rivers, hot off the delivery truck. Can you tell what it is? So I've been looking forward to this shipment coming in, and I don't want to really wait any longer. I want to jump right into the video, and I think you guys are going to like this one. So let's do it. Okay, so most recent update, if you haven't been following my social media and some of my recent posts, I got a new beautiful string from none other than Trevor Fielder, Triple T Strings. Super excited about it, but with new string, changed the tune of my arrows. So my old arrows, the ones you guys are used to seeing, the 4 fletch trads and the fluorescent yellow, had to change it up. Had to change a spine range, and changing some component weight and some tip weight, and hoping to stay about the same overall grains per inch and overall arrow weight that I have been at by adding and subtracting some weight in places. But I did have to change a spine range from 340s to 400s, so that's going to be the biggest factor that I'm going to be chasing. So I think this was a good move, though. I'm looking forward to shooting this thing, and as you can see, I got the green and orange. I think it looks super sexy, but we're going to see how this goes. Got completely different arrows from what I normally get, and I'm going to tear into them and show you guys what I got. Okay, so here we are. Get all this components out of here. Get rid of this. Here you go. These are it, guys. These are Black Eagle vintage 400 spine. I got these obviously stock length so that I can tune them. I just ordered a half dozen so I can get this kind of figured out and to make sure it's going to work for me, which I'm almost sure that it will. And I ordered, these should be, yep, here we go. They went ahead and sent me the stock inserts with them, so I guess that's kind of cool. That's some backups. I was freaking out for a second. And I went ahead and got 50 grain brass inserts. I'm bumping up to 50 grains with these, and like I said, I'm trying to keep a certain amount of FOC, a certain amount of total arrow weight, and by switching from 340 spine that I had to these 400 spines, you think for a 30-inch arrow, it's about a grain per inch difference. So, in that ballpark, I've already automatically lost 30 grains of arrow weight that I'm trying to get back, because you're better off in the long run by having an overall heavy arrow weight with some decent FOC rather than shooting a lighter arrow and a lot of FOC. So I'm definitely chasing a higher GPI. That's why I went with these Black Eagle vintage, because they still were pretty reasonable there. And I think these are like 9.1, 9.2, something like that. Grains per inch, which is really all in all pretty adequate. I'm not upset about that at all. But since I'm losing that kind of weight by switching spine ranges, and since these are a weaker spine, you can almost guarantee that these are going to be shorter arrows than what my 340s were by the time it's all said and done also. But I think the 50 grain brass inserts with these, I think are going to be just fine. They're going to tune really well, and Black Eagle has an awesome reputation, so I'm not worried about that. So that's the arrows and components. Of course, I'm sticking with trad vanes. That goes without saying. And to match this beautiful string from Trevor, I am going with green and orange trad vanes. Still 4 Fletch 90. That will remain the same, but just change colors a little bit and do something a little bit flashy, a little bit different. So I'm kind of excited about that. That's going to stay the same. Knocks, I may end up actually changing. I really like, don't ask me why, I really like these 3D Super Knocks from Easton. They're durable, and I kind of like the white knock. The white knock seems to show up really well. I think one of the first things I'm going to do is replace these knocks and get these 3D Super Knocks put on. I'm still going to be running 200 grains up front as far as my point weight. So it'll be a total about 250 grains up front. Get rid of these. Already have my AAE Max Bond, the only way to go for fletchings, I'm convinced. And just for gluing in components and stuff, just be using regular old Loctite super glue. So anyway, guys, that's the order. That's what came in the mail. That's what's going on with this build. And I can hardly wait to try these out and get some new, probably a little faster even arrows shooting through this bow. So I can't wait anymore, guys. Let's do it. Okay, so step number one, whenever you get new arrows, at least for a stick bow, I'm not so concerned about spinning these arrows. If there's a little bit of deviation in them, for me, it's really not going to make that much difference because you got to remember you can really split hairs with it. And I'm not a competition shooter. If I was, I probably would put a little bit more care into this, especially if I was shooting something like indoor. But for bow hunting and general practice and 3D shooting, I'm not concerned with spinning these shafts. I trust that Black Eagle's done a pretty good job staying within their tolerances, which they usually do. And it's not going to really cost me in the long run. So what I do now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and bust out an insert here, and I'm going to see how well these things fit in there on their own. The reason I'm going ahead and testing the fit is because sometimes inserts fit pretty stout just by themselves, like they're not just going to come out, especially if you're shooting at like square bales where more than likely your arrow is going to stab out the other side. You don't have a whole lot to worry about. So what I'm going to do with this one, I think I may have to put a little bit of hot melt on this to get it to stay in. And whenever you bare shaft, which is what I'm getting ready to do, I'm going to fire initial shot. I'm going to see how bad it is. I already know these are going to be way weak at full length. I've already assumed that much. But by going ahead and firing a shot through them and seeing how bad it is, seeing what I need to start with, maybe I need to go ahead and cut a whole 2 inches off of it. Then I at least know where I'm at rather than just starting, guessing, cutting a half or quarter inch at a time. I can get close and then start to dial it in a little bit quicker. But when it comes to bare shafting, everyone uses the term bare shafting. If you're doing this correctly and being accurate with it, you don't actually shoot a bare naked shaft. What you want to do is you can use a scale if you have one. I don't, so I just wing it to get it close. And then I fine tune it later. Take about the estimate weight of 4 of these vanes or however many vanes you're actually putting on your arrow, and you're going to want to take some black electrical tape, and you want to come back here to where your fletching set, and you're going to want to wrap that amount of tape that weighs about the same as 4 fletchings do around the back end of the shaft, because whether you realize it or not, these may not seem like to you that they weigh very much, but fletchings do affect the tune of your arrow. If you have 4 fletchings back there, it's going to make your arrow weaker. If you have no fletchings back there, it's going to make your arrow stiffer. So you want to actually take some tape or something similar thereof and equal about the same amount of weight back there whenever you're bare shafting. You don't just shoot a bare shaft because it's not going to give you a true answer. So got our tape wrapped on there. Again, should be pretty close, but I'm not trying to get it exact. I'm just trying to get it within the ballpark. I will probably end up, what I do is leave these arrows a little bit weak, just a touch weak, and then that's whenever I will stop cutting very much length off of them, and I'll start fine tuning it a little bit. But I will leave these a little bit on the weak side. But anyway, I'm going to get this bow strung up, head out here to the hay bales, and give this an initial shot, and we're going to see what happens. Okay, guys, walking back here to the range. One thing I did forget to mention, if you're going to be shooting your bow all the time with arrows in the quiver, then you need to have some arrows in your quiver for the tuning process, because the overall weight of your bow does affect your tune. So if you're going to have a quiver full of arrows, you need to tune with a quiver full of arrows. It will make a difference. So I just want to throw a little fact out there before I forgot. Okay, guys, so I'm here at like the 10-yard line. Tuning is a close affair, especially if you don't have your form tightened in pretty good and reined in pretty close and consistent, because it will make a difference, especially as you push further out. 10 yards is about all the further you want to be away whenever you first start. So that's all that I am right here. Got my arrow on here with the tape ready to go. I'm just going to do a couple of practice draws, and then I'm going to fling the first arrow. Yep, definitely a little bit weak. I saw that knock go to the left, but it impacted pretty close. So I'm going to shoot it one more time and see what kind of result that we get. Okay, so these arrows are definitely firing a little bit weak. They're firing weak enough. I feel pretty comfortable going ahead and starting with a whole inch taking off these arrows. Probably won't affect it a whole lot, but I don't want to take off too much and end up with too stiff of an arrow, because you can always take weight off. If it's a little weak, you can't put it back on. Quick down and dirty of how tuning works before I get any further into this. So when you're shooting a bow, whether have your friends watch you or using your phone, it's better just use your phone. Everybody has a cell phone nowadays. Everybody has the ability to shoot slow motion. So I would suggest you just use the slow-mo setting on your phone. What you're looking for in arrow flight with a traditional bow, your arrow, you have to realize it's flexing around your riser of your bow. So what making tune so important is how well that arrow recovers after it flexes around your bow. If it's too stiff, it won't recover, and it's going to want to fly knock right downrange. So it's going to be flying downrange like this. And that's what you'll see in your slow motion footage. Now, if your shaft is too weak, as it's flexing around that bow, it's got no stiffness to help straighten itself back out again after it flexes around. So instead of flying down range knock right like this, you'll see a weak shaft. When it fires at your bow, it's going to fly down range knock left. So your impacts, you'll see, if you're just shooting at a target and looking for impact, which is what some people do, I prefer just watching the video and see what happens. But your impact, obviously, if your knock is way over here on a weak arrow like mine just was, your point of impact is going to be to the right, because your knock is way over here in no man's land, flying sideways down range. So as it hits the target, it's going to hit over here, not in the center. So same thing if it's too stiff. If it's stiff and flying down range, knock right like this, you're going to impact to the left because it's hitting the target like this. So that's what you're looking for whenever you're trying to determine what your arrow is doing. Now, again, I'll repeat, nock right is too stiff, nock left is too weak. It's easy to get them confused. I get them confused sometimes because I really don't do this very often because I don't change my arrow setups a whole lot. But good thing to remember, write it down somewhere if you have to, but that's what you're looking for. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and run in here and take an inch off of these shafts, just off of this bare shaft, and come back out and shoot it again and see what kind of results that I get. Okay guys, I went ahead and got a little bit gutsy and took a whole 1.5 inches off of this arrow. Not really concerned about it. If I'm thinking correctly, I could probably take quite a bit more off of that. I'm going to have a ways to go, but 1.5 inches off of stock length arrows, I might add. These were full uncut stock length arrows, so I don't know if I think those come around like 33, 34 inches. We're going to see what happens. So here we go again. This is shot number 2 after the first cut. Still a little bit weak. Still impacting nock left. So I'm going to go ahead and take it, run back in there, and cut another inch off. Okay, guys, shot number 3. Just cut another inch off. We're setting at 31.5 inch overall arrow length right now. And I'm going to see what this does. That shot pretty straight. That shot really straight. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to have to slow-mo that one and see just how close that I am, and I'll update you guys. All right, guys, well, that is shooting pretty darn close. I'm going to go ahead and get this buttoned up and get the last final couple cuts made. Basic overall gist, guys, it's very self-explanatory. Nothing worth getting freaked out about. As you shorten the arrow and you take the length off of it, you're making it slowly stiffer. That's why this is a slow process. Don't take off any more at a time than you need to. I've done this quite a few times over the years and kind of know what about I need to take off at a time. I would suggest you guys maybe only take like a 1/2 inch off at a time. And as you slowly but surely make that arrow shorter, it's not able to flex as much because the weight is not at as much of a peripheral distance from the center of the arrow anymore. So rather than this point being 2 or 3 inches further out here, it's now closer to the center of the shaft. The shaft's not going to flex as much. So basic premise, as you shorten it, it will get stiffer. Only take a little bit at a time until you are, have your wife or whoever, friend, buddy, stand over top you with the phone on slow-mo while you shoot, and keep taking weight off of it, pulling the point and the component out, putting hot melt on it, putting it back in after you cut it, and shoot until that arrow is flying straight downrange away from your bow. You don't want any tail left, tail right, nothing. You want it flying straight downrange on a slow motion video. And at that point, your arrow is tuned to your bow. By this time, you should already have your nock height figured out as well, to where it's flying flat at your bow, not tail high or tail low. If you're going to pick between the one, a nock high is a little bit better than a nock low, because the nock low kind of causes a ramp effect at your bow, whereas a little bit nock high, it has a direction to travel, if that makes any sense. So it seems really complicated, but it's not. So I'm going to wrap up the rest of this so I know that everything's good to go, and then we're going to head inside and start fletching some arrows. All right, guys, I'm back inside the house, and I'm going to go ahead and start fletching these things up and kind of show you the basics of how to fletch. I'm not going to go over every little detail. There's plenty of videos out there to do that. My process really isn't a whole lot different from everybody else's. So very first thing you're going to want to do, it's super important, and a lot of people leave this out, is cleaning the shafts up here where you're going to fletch at before you do so with something like alcohol. I'm just using 91% medical alcohol from the store. You can get it anywhere, and that's all that you really need to use. You know, some guys use acetone, stuff like that, but I've had pretty good success just using regular medical alcohol. And if it's squeaky clean, then that's good enough. You're just mostly trying to make sure there's not oil from your hands or dirt or anything like that, considering I did just shoot this through a hay bale, bare shafting it. So now that you got it clean, you're going to want to decide well before this what direction you want to fletch your arrows. 99% of bows out there, for the most part, compound, recurve, regardless, shoot left helical. If you were to time this arrow, put a Sharpie mark on the arrow, shoot it from like 6 feet away, go up, look at it, see which direction it rotated. Most bows naturally want to rotate to the left, so I always just go ahead and do left helical to make it simple. So I'm using a boning pro jig here with a left helical clamp, and I already told you guys what I'm using vanes wise. I'm using AAE trad vanes, the only way to go in my personal opinion for fletching choice. I'm using orange and green. I've mentioned it in other videos. My perhaps biggest reason that I like to do 4-fletch, not only it stabilizes the arrow, I don't see that I lose any speed from it, but it allows you to basically just knock your arrow however you grab it. You're not trying to spin it to get the odd feather in a certain spot, whatever, especially when it's dark out. If it snaps on the string, it's good to go. So I'm fletching these 4-fletch at 90, I might add. I'm not doing the whole X-wing thing. I can't even remember what the degrees is on that, but this is just 4-fletch 90. So they're going to be a perfect X straight across from each other. Now, with this jig, I really like this jig for the trad vanes, because you do have plenty of room to glue on, but they're fairly small, and that's some of how they are able to flex and collapse down like they do to behave similar to a feather, is by having this very thin base. So something like a pro jig or a Bitzenberger is really good for these, because you can clamp it on here and leave, just not drop it all the way down into the clamp, but leave like maybe an 1/16 of an inch sticking up to the base of the vane rather than dropping it all the way down. And it just makes sure that it's not going to slip down in between the clamp and you not get a proper glue up. So I just leave like a 1/16 of an inch sticking up, and I'll use that as kind of my buffer to put a little bit of down pressure. The best glue that I've found so far, and I just go ahead and use the glue that's suggested for these vanes to make for darn sure that I'm going to get the performance and the glue up that I need. I just used a Max Bond. This stuff is incredible. I've had the best experience with glue ups that I've ever had using Max Bond. And one bottle lasts you quite a while if you're fletching the right way. So this is where a lot of people screw up, okay? And this is where I used to screw up as well. You don't want to douse these things in glue. What I like to do, I like to put a dot of glue at one end. Stick that in there just a little bit more. I like to put a dot of glue at one end and a dot of glue at the other, and one in the middle, and then I just kind of take the end of the glue bottle and drag it across the entire base of the vane until I can look in the light and see that every little last bit of that vane base has a little bit of glue on it, and that's all you need. More is not always better whenever it comes to glue. I guess you'd say less is more when it comes to gluing up your vanes, because if you get a whole bunch on there, it just goops up, squeezes out the sides, and you're not going to get a good glue up. So just those three dots, and that's all that you really need. So put one dot on the top, one dot on the bottom, in the middle. And like I said, just take the tip of the glue bottle and just drag it across the whole vein. I said it helps to have a good light over top of you, because then you can actually really look down this and see that you really truly do have glue on every last little bit of this vein. It's a happy medium though. I mean, if you need to add a little glue, add just a little touch of glue. You don't want it just barely hanging on either, but it doesn't take near what you think that it does. Like I said, I see guys absolutely douse these things, and then it all shoots out the side, and you end up getting a bad glue up. So that's pretty good. I see a good solid sheen of glue all the way across this thing. So I'll get my arrow in here seated tight. We got her on its marks, facing the right direction, which is also important. Go ahead and make sure the arrow's seated all the way in the back of the jig, and I'll just go ahead and drop it on there. Make sure I've got good even pressure, and then I go ahead and press down on the clamp lightly. Even pressure across the whole clamp, and I just count to like 15 seconds. All right, it's been 15 seconds. Spread the clamp, pull off, and there you go. You have one vein glued on. And I usually let them dry for several hours before I end up shooting them ultimately, but really truthfully, it wouldn't take that long before they're ready to shoot, but I just prefer to play it on the safe side. But you're just going to keep doing that like I'm doing with 4 fletch. You're going to do that 4 more times, alternating colors, and until you've got all your arrows fletched up, but it's pretty self-explanatory. All right, guys, there you have it. Just a few minutes later, you've got a beautifully fletched arrow. I just love the way these trad veins look. Feathers are cool too, but you guys know my stance on these. I'm a pretty big fan of them. If you guys need to go back and put a dot of glue up here on the leading end or even on the back end of the vein, it's not a bad idea. Just go back through and put a little dot. It doesn't need to be much, just one little dot at the base, just as a little extra security, and it will ensure that these veins stay in place for you. But I haven't had any real problems doing it this way. I haven't had veins fly off. I've had them shoot through bales and not even tear up a little bit. This stuff, when it finally does set up, has a really good holding strength, and you're not going to have a lot of problems. I just usually end up going ahead and giving it about 24 hours just to make sure, and my veins seem to hold just fine. These tuned out really good after shooting a slow-mo. That last cut that I made was perfect. Maybe still a touch weak, but that's okay. I'll dial that in after I already have this fletched and shoot it with the exact final weight that it's going to be. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining me on this. I wanted to kind of go through my arrow building and tuning process with you guys, so you guys kind of have an idea how I do it. Everyone does a little bit different, but my process is pretty simple. So again, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and stop back in next week. I'm dropping new videos every week, and hit that bell icon so you get notified when I drop new videos as well. But anyway, again, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys again next time. Shoot straight.